ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं शरवणमङ्गलं शरिमदादतं भुवि वदन्ति भूरिदा जना. Your words are like nectar, bring life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We're on chapter 30, The Master in Various Moods. The date was Thursday, October 2nd, 1884, and we're at the bottom of page 580. This is taking place in Sri Ramakrishna's room in Dakshineshwar, and Latu, Ramlal, Harish, and Hazra were there. Baburam, it says, came occasionally. Anyhow, there's Manilal Malik. He is the main person that is having a conversation with Sri Ramakrishna. Manilal Malik, Priya Mukherjee, and his relative Hari. So there were several other people there, and this conversation is mostly between Sri Ramakrishna and Mani Malik. He was a long time a member of the Brahmo Samaj. You are leading a householder's lives. It is necessary for you to live in the company of holy men. First of all, the company of holy men, then shraddha, faith in God. This emphasis on holy company is something that we see over and over and over again. That whenever Sri Ramakrishna is asked, what are the means to realize God? Almost inevitably, holy company is first. There's all different varieties of things that come after that. Very often, it's calling on God in solitude, or prayer, or meditation. Here, for some reason, he gives special emphasis to shraddha. And first of all, holy company, then shraddha. The holy company is not simply being in the company of holy people. We have to do our part. We have to be open. We have to really pay attention, to go with faith and reverence, and try to put into practice the teachings that we get, and try to observe very carefully the way these great souls, the way they live in the world, and the way they deal with people, and try to see them as a type of ideal. As Ramakrishna uses this image of casting, taking a mold and casting an image in the mold. That in order to have an ideal, that we have to have someone that we can really represent a standard, a role model for us. Now, with Sri Ramakrishna, we always have to distinguish what things are meant for him and him alone, that we can't possibly do, and we just stand in awe of certain things, and what things he did that are meant specifically for us. And not just him, all of the direct disciples, Holy Mother, of course, that we can observe that, say, for example, when Sri Ramakrishna prays out loud, there's no need for him to pray out loud. He's only doing it to teach us how to pray for pure love, to not be deluded by this Maya, to not care for name and fame, for enjoyments and pleasures. This type of love. So this is what we get with the Holy Company, and it's the character, the teachings that we get from Sri Ramakrishna, as wonderful as they are. There are many people who have a very sharp intellect who can repeat these things and explain these things, but it won't be the same. And Thakur mentions that himself many times, that it has to be the character of the person has to be there. So In the case of during Sri Ramakrishna's time, the Holy Company was something very, very unusual, very rare. That to have Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji and uh, Raja Maharaj and all of the others, this was a very rare thing that we can't expect to have. But we have the blessings of enough Holy Company that we can feel that inspiration. But we have to do something. We have to be open to it, and then we have to do something. We can't just clap our hands and say how wonderful that, and we have to try to understand what went behind, what preceded all of this. I always think of some of the old swamis that I knew, say Swami Lokeshwaranandaji, very sweet, very loving, everything, and wonder how we got like that. Unless we know his early life, that all of the meditation and all of the austerities and all of the fearlessness that he had. Now we see him when he's older. So Swami Bhuteshanandaji. Just everyone will say, "Oh, so loving and so sweet natured," but he had a fiery renunciation when he was young. He went off to Himalayas, Uttarkashi, lived on alms for a long time. So we have to have some understanding of what preceded what we see also. So this holy company and then shraddha, these go hand in hand. These are very, very closely related because shraddha means that we have a certain type of reverence for these holy people, for the Guru, specifically for the teachings that we find for scriptures and Guru. This is the standard definition that we have, that the faith and the teachings of the Guru and the scriptures and uh, faith, not blind faith, of course, but some type of feeling of humility and openness and reverence. All of these things go into shraddha. The word shraddha is very interesting. It comes from this shrad is related to hrid, heart. Yeah. And dha means placed. That which is placed within the heart. So that about which we're most sincere. With the Gita, there are many verses about shraddha. That shraddha is the one very basic prerequisite for spiritual life. Those who are lacking in shraddha and don't have a chance. And to have shraddha doesn't require any brilliant intellect. It doesn't require much. It requires sincerity and a little humility and the feeling that uh, we don't have all of the answers, that there are people who have walked the path and know uh, what the goal is, and that these are the people that we go to with great reverence and humility. We sit before them. This is shraddha. So the shraddha is the necessary prerequisite for getting something out of holy company. So these are not two unrelated things. When he says that first, that we have to have company of holy men, then shraddha, faith in God. It's not simply faith in God. It's really an attitude that one has. Faith in God. If we say faith means yes, I believe something without understanding it necessarily, that's not shraddha. Shraddha is really a deep type of sincerity, a deep sincerity within the heart. We can have shraddha for all different types of things also, even tamasic is shraddha. We have the beautiful sections in the Gita, but the shraddha in Gita is the defining feature of an individual. An individual is defined by the nature of his or her shraddha. Shraddha mayo yam purusha yo yad shraddha sayeva saha. A person is what his shraddha is. And so this really, uh, those who have a certain type of arrogance, those who think they know everything, that they don't need a teacher and guru, that they can do everything on their own, they're lacking in this shraddha, or it's a kind of tamasic shraddha. Now, Swamiji, he adds another beautiful thing, Atma shraddha. We have to have faith in ourselves also, faith in our ability uh, to really conquer in this battle with the lower self. That we need that real feeling, that heroic attitude. But in general, this shraddha, uh, it means this real openness and willing to listen and to learn and to have deep reverence for these great souls whose whole lives have been devoted to God. We see sometimes I think we take it for granted. Some of the senior sadhus that we have, that whole lifetime they've dedicated themselves every action to the order, and that means to Sri Ramakrishna. There's no distinction there, and especially those who uh, spend the whole lifetime in the West. It's a great sacrifice to leave the homeland and to work among people that you're not familiar with and everything. And really, this dedication is something wonderful, and we need to appreciate all of these things. So that, anyhow, that is shraddha. If we can have that feeling here, it says reverence and faith in God. So this is a nice way of putting it. So uh, let me just go back. You were leading a householder's lives. It is necessary for you to live in the company of a holy man. So Sri Ramakrishna says one should always keep the company of a holy people. Holy men, of course, is only the translation. It means holy women and holy men, holy people in general. And uh, there are different levels also. Devotees themselves are holy company, to be with people of the same like mind, who have the same goals and the same spiritual attitude. This is helpful always. And it's helpful for us to have the company of the devotees also. So it doesn't simply mean, of course, the highest holy company is a God realized person, but this is rare. We don't get this every day. How can people have reverence and faith in God if the holy men do not sing his name and glories? Now, Sri Ramakrishna is talking about the responsibility that these holy people have. And we're told this very often. I remember Swami Swananji said to me once that uh, sadhu life is a public life. And now it's a very odd statement. We think it's a private life and that everything is internal. We don't want to show off or anything. But what he meant was that people will judge. They'll judge Sri Ramakrishna. They'll judge the order. They'll judge spiritual attitude that we have, everything based on what they see from us. So we have an obligation to live up to these ideals and to put them into practice and not to make a show of anything. But if we don't do this, then we're lowering that ideal. So this is something that those of us who we're the ones who have enlisted in the army. We're the we're the ones who have to, be the soldiers in Swamiji's army. So we have to try to live up to a very high standard. But this is also devotees as well. That I think most of you know that there are many people that will say, "Oh, these people they go to this Vedanta center a whole lifetime. What's happened? I don't see any change in them. They seem like ordinary people." That we are also devotees also have to act in a certain way so that people will say, "Oh, yeah, now I understand why they're so uh, humble and why they have this high spiritual attitude, that they're devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother." So this is something that it shouldn't be the first thing we think of when we decide what to do and what not to do, but it should be part of the equation a little bit. That we should all be role models to a certain extent. Try with humility, of course. Okay. So, how can people have reverence and faith in God if the holy men do not sing his names and glories? People respect a man if they know that in his family there have been royal ministers for 3 generations. So, we represent a tradition. We represent a tradition, and we have to live up to that responsibility. To M, even if one has attained knowledge, one must still constantly practice God consciousness. Now, I always find it interesting when Sri Ramakrishna will start to talk to somebody. Now, the whole conversation is with Mani Malik, but for some reason, looking to him. He says that even if one has attained knowledge, one must constantly practice God consciousness. Now, why is he telling this to M? I think that this Mani Malik, first of all, he's quite elderly. Second of all, he's a little bit stuck in his ways. He's a member of the Brahma Samaj. And M has a special role to play. And M is still young. And now he must be probably 30 years old, something like that. And M, of course, has this level of spirituality equal to the direct disciples. Is one of the antarangas, one of the inner circle, and had such an important role to play. So he was constantly encouraging him, and really building up M's life so that he would be the ideal Grihi sannyasi, have the mindset of a sannyasi, living the life of a householder. So, because M wanted to renounce, we know many times that it doesn't come out so clearly here, but we know that he had that great desire and great regret, we can say. We get that feeling, a little bit of this regret and tremendous envy, not jealousy, but of those who could renounce everything. And he felt stuck a little bit with that householder life. And of course, his family life wasn't happy. He couldn't get along with his father and his elder brothers and everything, and had to separate. And then, of course, the death of a child was a horrible thing. And so many things in his life. But Sri Ramakrishna felt that he could represent a tremendous ideal as a householder, that one can have the mindset and the same longing for God as a householder that one can have as a monk. And then Thakur quotes Nangta. Nangta is Totapuri. Thakur always refers to him as that because the naked one, because it was Thakur's practice and something current then, even today, not to use the given name, the real name of a highly respected person. So he will always say Nangta. Even Holy Mother, he'll never use Holy Mother's name. Always Ramlal's aunt. So this was a common thing. So he referred to him as Nangta. Nangta used to say, "What is the use of polishing the outside of a metal pot one day only? If you don't polish it regularly, it will get tarnished again." Now, this actually can happen. Of course, we think that if we do some spiritual practice, we go on some retreat, we do something, we'll reach a higher level. We'll think, oh, we really gained something spiritually. Unless we keep it up, we'll go back to the old level. We have to make a habit of it and make it a regular practice to do whatever spiritual disciplines that we do. Now, there's a footnote to all of this, and that is that when Nangta told this to Sri Ramakrishna, he raised an objection. That at that time he said, well, what if the pot, this metal pot, is turned to gold? And then Totapuri had to agree. Yes, there's no need to polish it every day if it's turned to gold. Anyhow, that was Sri Ramakrishna's case. And all of these, for these God-realized souls, they don't have to do their spiritual practices, that they've attained the goal already. And yet, very often they'll do it. One, to set an example, and two, what else will they do? And they get joy out of it. Say the Swami Turiyananda, he was a living embodiment of the Upanishads. Why should he study the Upanishads? Whole life he liked to read the Upanishads. He got tremendous joy out of it. Yeah. So we understand that their communion with God is different, that it's a real, some direct experience. Naturally, they'll want to remain in that state. But also they have that sense that this, and in Gita we find its emphasis also, this loka sangraha, to stand as living example for other people. So even Sri Krishna, he says, I have nothing to do. If I don't do anything, then nothing will. If I do something, I don't get anything. If I don't do something, I don't lose anything. But still, I remain active. I act in this world with this spirit of offering and everything to set an example to others. So Nangta used to say, what is the use of polishing the outside of a metal pot one day only? If you don't polish it regularly, it will get tarnished again. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, I shall have to go to your house sometime. He's talking to M. Yeah, now, probably because of M's situation. Now, at this time, I don't know if he's gone back. See, throughout the gospel, we have this tug of war that he can't bear to go back home, and Thakur keeps pushing him to go back home. And then at one point, he does go back home for some time. Otherwise, he used to stay at his school and other things. Probably this means his ancestral home, which is now this Kotamrita Bhavan. And probably he hadn't been invited there because of M's father and brothers, and he was afraid that he wouldn't be shown proper respect. My guess, yeah, because he's been to so many other houses. Balaram Bosa's house so many times. There's others' house so many times. Ram's house so many times that at this date, this is 2 years after, 2.5 years. What was the date? Yeah, 2.5 years after first meeting him, and still hasn't been to his house. Yeah, so I'm sure M would have felt it to be the greatest blessing that Sri Ramakrishna had come there. Anyhow, he says, I shall have to go to your house sometime. If I know your house, I can meet other devotees there. This was a very standard practice, because Sri Ramakrishna knew that it was not easy for everyone, all the devotees, to come to Dakshineshwar whenever they felt like it. It was a little distant in those times. It was really almost a separate village, and they had their work and everything. So very often he would go to the devotees' homes, and they would let everybody know. There was a whole circle, a whole network, mostly in North Calcutta, but a whole network that would be from the mouth to mouth. Word would get out. Sometimes he would say, call this person, call that person. Where is Narendra? Where is this person? And it would be a big occasion. It happened also with several of the Brahmo devotees when they would have their utsav, their big celebrations, that all of the devotees would go there at that time. So these were the two occasions when either they would all come to Dakshineshwar, or Sri Ramakrishna would go to the individual homes. And then, of course, at the end, at Kashipur, Sham Bazar for a short time, and then Kashipur also. Then he says, please go to see Ishan sometime. Now, we remember Ishan. He was also an elderly, very devoted to spiritual practice, very devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna loved him very much. And we get a little bit of a bad impression of him because of this advice to Ishan chapter, when he had that great desire to do this Purusjanan, to do this repetition of probably Gayatri. I know some, yeah. And Thakur wasn't very much in favor in this age, he said, worship of Divine Mother. Anyhow, they had, he got a big scolding. And we may think that Sri Ramakrishna didn't have such a high opinion of him, but this is not right. That actually, he praised this Ishan many times. And Swamiji was very close friends with one of his sons, who also was a musician. They would sing and play tabla together sometimes. And Swamiji, he made a great statement I always remember, that Adhar was every bit as charitable as Vidyasagar. Now, Vidyasagar was known to be uh, the most philanthropic and charitable and compassionate person of his day. His whole life was spent helping other people. So for Swamiji to say that, as charitable as Vidyasagar, that was the gold standard at that time. So Ishan was a great devotee, and Sri Ramakrishna knew which of his devotees would gain by keeping the company of others. He gave that interesting analogy that the housewife knows which lid fits which pot. Yeah, we have in the kitchen, we have probably 30 or 40 of these different containers, and none of the lids fit. I don't I don't know how it happened, but for Sri Ramakrishna, he knew. So does Bhavanath and Narendra, Swamiji and Bhavanath, and they were kind of paired off together. And there were others, of course, Swami Turiyananda and Swami Akhandananda. There's Hari and Gangadhar, both very orthodox in their ways and everything. So he knew who would be helpful. Either they had the same spiritual attitude or they complemented each other. So uh, then we'll have others say Swamiji and Swami Brahmananda. Very different attitudes that Thakur says with Rakal, Swami Brahmananda. When people talk about the impersonal absolute, he runs away. He liked this personal God idea. And yet they had such a close, very, very, very close, loving relationship. Anyhow, for whatever reason, he wants him to go to see Ishan sometime. To Manilal. Keshab Sen's mother came here the other day. Now he's addressing Manilal because again a Brahmos conversation about Keshab's mother. Keshab Sen's mother came here the other day. Keshab had died very recently before this. And she was very devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. And she and the whole family went to see him, of course, after Keshab died. And Thakur had great respect for Keshav's mother. She was very highly devotional. The whole family actually came, we'll get to it, he came from a highly devotional Vaishnava family, which is so strange because the Vaishnava tradition put so much emphasis on personal God, God with form, image worship, avatar, all these different things that the Brahma Samaj either rejected or didn't care for. And yet there was never any rift, it seemed, with Keshab and his mother or family or anything. So Keshab Sen's mother came here the other day. The young boys of her family sang the name of Hari. She went around them clapping her hands. I noticed she was not very much stricken with grief over Keshab's death. She observed the fast of Ekadashi here and counted her beads. I was pleased to see her devotion to God. Manilal. Ram Kamal Sen, Keshab Babu's grandfather, was a devotee of God. He used to sit in the Tulsi Grove. See, they're all Vaishnavas, the Vaishnava church, in the Tulsi Grove and repeat God's holy name. Pyari Mohan, Keshab's father, was also a Vaishnava devotee. Master, the son could not have been so devoted to God if the father had not been like that. Yeah, how Keshab became such a staunch and of course ultimately the leader of the Brahmo Samaj, I don't really know, but probably he came into contact with Devendranath. Anybody know? Yeah, I would imagine because he was, of course, one of the leading spiritual figures of his day. He may have been a little bit too early for Keshab to meet directly, huh? But definitely Devendranath, of course, he could have met. But Keshab was the one really who built it up, and we associated with him so much. Ramamohan Roy was really the original founder of that movement and tradition. I think the way it ended up as an organization, we have to say Devendranath Tagore. Yeah, and then Keshab was the main person, even while Devendranath was living. So the son could not have been so devoted to God if the father had not been like that. Look at Vijay. There's a Vijay Krishna Goswami. Here's another case where he ended up being a Brahmo member of the Brahmo Samaj, but was also, he was a Goswami. That meant from a very orthodox Vaishnava tradition, tracing themselves back to the Chaitanya time, and probably Advaita Goswami. For those people who had such a rich living bhakti tradition, to become Brahmos was a real, square block and a round hole for some of them. It just didn't work. For Vijay, it absolutely didn't work.
Didn't stick also.
And it didn't stick.
They reverted afterwards.
Yeah. So the Vijay, and this is all taking place at this time. And we know that he had three different phases. First, he's with Keshab, they're best friends. They're working hand in hand. And then because of this scandal, almost we can say, with Keshab marrying his daughter when she was just below the marriageable age. They made a big point. That was one of the issues of the Brahmo Samaj, that girls can't be married below a certain age. He was a little bit below that. But I have this feeling that it was partly because of Keshab's health, that I think he wanted to arrange that marriage before he died. He was very ill at that time, and it was a very good marriage. It was this royal family of Kuch Bihar. And so even Thakur said, yes, the duty of a father to arrange a good marriage like that. Anyhow, because of that, and Vijay left, and then with some of the others, Shivnath and everything, they started their own separate group. And then the third thing was that even then, he didn't feel quite right about everything. And went back to his Vaishnava roots, and also felt this tremendous vairagya, tremendous, such strong feeling of renunciation that he renounced when he had a family even. And for Sri Ramakrishna, generally those who had a family, he would say, no, you live in the family life. But rare cases were those who had such tremendous renunciation. And the family was well cared for and everything, that he didn't raise any objection. He seemed to encourage Vijay. So we'll see him showing up later wearing his garawa and everything and singing and dancing, and Thakur's so happy. And he loved Thakur. They also had a beautiful relationship. It was Keshab and Vijay who really appreciated Sri Ramakrishna of all the members of the Brahmo Samaj. Others to a certain extent, of course. But fully, I would say these two. And Vijay, the one who really followed through with everything. Yeah, there are books and things written on the life of Vijay Krishna Goswami. He was considered to be a very great saint. Yeah, I haven't read them, but I've seen. And he got great, big and fat and long hair and beard and everything. Yeah, so very highly thought of. Look at Vijay. His father would become unconscious of the world in divine ecstasy while reading the Bhagavata. Vijay can hardly control his emotion. So finally, he was able to let everything loose. The Brahmos, they were a little bit serious. They do kirtan, we see that, but that's, I think, the influence of Sri Ramakrishna, where they get up and sing and dance everything. They picked that up from him. But other than that, they were a little bit on the serious side. So Vijay had to restrain himself all those years. Now, Vijay can hardly control his emotion. While uttering Hari's name, he sometimes stands up from his seat. The forms of God that Vijay sees nowadays are all real. So he, like Ramakrishna, like Swami Ramananda, like Swami Vijnananda, there were some of them that they had that type of mind and that type of spiritual attitude and spiritual tendency, where the mind could go into a higher realm and they could experience all of these things. It's not something that is easy to understand or explain, but we can't deny it. And to them, they were 100% real, and not simply imagination or hallucination. And now, does the imagination have any role to play? Yes, there's something subjective about these experiences, but the essence of it is real. The particular name and form, everyone will have their own types of experiences. Uh, but Sri Ramakrishna, if he says they're real, then they're real. He was the ultimate judge of these things. And because he was such a pure soul devotee, things happen. But they don't happen with his ordinary mind. The mind has to somehow ascend to a different level to have these types of experiences and visions. And not everyone will get visions. We know this from that one incident with Baburam, Swami Premananda, that while all of the others, these especially during the very last year I could say, of Dakshineshwar and during Kashipur, that many of the disciples were having different types of spiritual experiences and visions and ecstasies and different things like that. And this Baburam went to Sri Ramakrishna and said, well, what's happening here? Why don't I get these visions and things? So Sri Ramakrishna said, okay, let me think. And he came back and said, I spoke to the Divine Mother. She, she said, you won't get these visions, you'll get knowledge, you'll get wisdom. Now, why, in his case, because he was one of the most bhakti-oriented and devotional in nature and soft nature and sweet in nature, we don't think of him as a hard, staunch Vedantin with this path of knowledge. But and wisdom doesn't mean just this Vedantic wisdom, it means the highest type of experience. But everyone is different, so not everyone will get these types of experiences and visions and things. So the forms of God that Vijay sees nowadays are all real, speaking about the different aspects of God, formless and with form. Vijay said that God sometimes appears with attributes and sometimes without attributes. This was one of the most important teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, how he tried to explain to M and to the other Brahmos that God can take form and it doesn't change the formless nature of God, that they're not two separate things. That just like water, it'll take a particular form. If it forms a block of ice, that'll have a particular form. If it's in a container, it'll have a particular form. But that doesn't change the essential nature of water. It's formless. It doesn't have any form of its own. It can take any form. And then the sun of knowledge comes, the block melts, and it goes back and one with the ocean again. So even if we think an individual, that if I look at somebody, then I see the essential nature of that person is the Atman, the self, the pure self within. But we don't get the full weight of the bell fruit if we don't accept the personality and the sweetness and the loving nature and kindness and all of the other attributes. Both are equally important, but it's the self alone that is the essential and unchanging aspect. We can say that much. But why do we, if we love somebody because of the self within, we'll love everyone equally. And we don't love everyone equally. What we love about people is how that divinity shines through their personality and sweetness and love that comes through that, or heroic nature and strength, all the different types of things. So it doesn't take away from the essential impersonal nature of the self within each person, but it's manifesting as an individual. And this is why I think Sri Ramakrishna liked that example of the bell fruit. If we don't accept the personal and impersonal both, we don't get the full weight. If we don't accept with form, without form, we don't get the full weight. We don't get the full picture of God as the ground and the manifestation, immanent and transcendent both. So for the Brahmos, it was a little one-sided, their idea. For the devotees, the dualist devotees, it's also one-sided. That for them, this nirguna aspect It's just kind of a whitewashing, eliminating the personal aspect of the personal God. So for Thakur, they were all equally valid and real and helpful, and it was a question of spiritual attitude more than anything else. Water? So speaking about the different aspects of God, formless and with form, Vijay said that God sometimes appears with attributes and sometimes without attributes. He gave the example of the chameleon. Now, he gave the example of the chameleon because he heard it from Sri Ramakrishna. This is the example that he gave so many times. He gave the example of the chameleon, which sometimes turns red, sometimes blue, sometimes green, and sometimes remains colorless. So this is that idea that God can reveal himself in the form that the devotee wants to see. This is one way of understanding it. Yeah. Vijay is really guileless. Now, this is the other characteristic that Thakur loved so much. For people to be simple like a child, and guileless. Guileless, not calculating, not manipulating and trying to figure things out all the time. It's simple. He loved that simplicity. One cannot realize God without being guileless and liberal minded. So, liberal minded, udahar. This is liberal minded. That means that we're not always judging people, that we accept people for what they are. We accept their belief system as something that's precious for them, and we're not to judge them. And we take the high road with everything. The people criticize us, we say, okay, we accept it. We don't get in the mud and fight back with them. We take the high road. There's a udaru. Yesterday, Vijay was at Adhar Sen's house. He behaved as if it were his own place, and those who lived there his own people. One cannot be guileless and liberal-minded unless one is free from worldliness. Now, we remember all of the Brahmins who went to Adhar's house and hesitated to eat there and to feel that closeness and everything. Vijay, he also comes from a high Brahmin family, the Goswami, very highly respected and everything. Of course, the Brahmos didn't care for the caste system. That's also part of it. And also part of it that he has the mindset of a sannyasi, but also just that simplicity. And also, they heard Thakur say so many times that this caste system doesn't apply to among devotees. No caste among devotees of God. They belong to their own caste, you can say. One cannot be guileless and liberal-minded unless one is free from worldliness. Then the master sang, you will attain that priceless treasure when your mind is free from stain. He continued, you cannot make a pot without first carefully preparing the clay. The pot will crack if the clay contains particles of sand or stone. That is why the potter first prepares the clay by removing the sand and stones. Now, we think through our meditation, through our spiritual practice, that we can build up reach some very high spiritual stature. But there's stones within. There, or at least bits of grit and sand and everything, that we really have to pay attention to this idea of purity of heart and ridding ourselves of all of these passions, anger, lust, hatred, jealousy, pride, all of these things, as far as possible. Otherwise, the structure, it'll fall apart. There'll be cracks in it. We won't be able to build up anything very solid. If spiritual life has to be based on the ground of at least an attempt to lead a very pure type of life, and to be free from all of this tamas and rajas, all of these qualities that drag us down, pull the mind down. This failure to accept other people the way they are. This failure to just be free from this tendency to criticize and judge other people. All of these things just pull the mind down. They tie us to this body mind idea and to this ego and everything. So these are really so important, to be free from jealousy and anger and pride, and especially this judging other people. This is something we know that Holy Mother thought it was such an important thing, to learn to accept people for what they are and who they are, and not judge them. That everybody has their own reason for doing things and for being the way they are, and it's not up to us to judge. We should learn to be accepting of everyone. So these are critical and essential features if we want to build this edifice of spiritual life. Otherwise, these cracks will come. These are really such a simple little statement about a pot will crack, and it's such a deep meaning to these things. Really, these have to be thought about very deeply. What does it mean for there to be the stones and things in the clay? You cannot make a pot without first carefully preparing the clay. The pot will crack if the clay contains particles of sand or stone. That is why the potter first prepares the clay by removing the sand and stones. Now, this does not mean that we postpone our spiritual practice until we've attained the state of purity, because we attain it through spiritual practice. We do both at the same time, but this is the best way to attain this purity of heart, some sincere spiritual practice, but at the same time, this self-analysis, and we have to root out some of these, especially tamasic and rajasic tendencies. We have to forget about going beyond the three gunas. We have to become sattvic people first. We have to get that essential goodness and kindness and understanding and non-judgmental attitude and charitable attitude and compassionate attitude, loving attitude. We have to build up all of these things. If a mirror is covered with dirt, it won't reflect one's face. A man cannot realize his true self unless his heart is pure. So this is one very nice way of understanding that the mind is like a mirror, or like this surface of the water. And that sun that's reflected, we have the analogy of sun reflected in the container filled with water. It won't be a perfect sun. If the water's choppy, the reflection will be choppy. If the water's dirty, we won't see that lightness of the sun. It'll be brown. So we have these two ways of looking at it, that the mind is all stirred up with different emotions and things. It makes it very muddy. And it's filled with all the random thoughts and everything, which makes the surface uneven. So how do we get that clear image? The heart has to be pure, the mind has to be quiet. These two things. So this is what do you say? The mirror covered with dirt. So the same thing. A man cannot realize his true self unless his heart is pure. You will find guilelessness wherever God incarnates himself as man. Nanda Ghosh, Dasharat, Vasudeva, all of them were guileless. These are all the father or stepfather of Sri Krishna and Sri Rama. The Vedanta says that a man does not even desire to know God unless he has a pure mind. Why? Because we'll only care for enjoyment. Enjoyment and power. See, this lust for enjoyment for many people takes the form of power. Really lusting after power and wealth and control over people and everything. It's not always just to enjoy as much as we can. That this is also a tremendous temptation we see with very wealthy people, with politicians, with others, that how they revel in that power of control over people. And we all have it to a certain extent. Nothing like that, of course, but this desire for enjoyment this desire for recognition, for appreciation, for name and fame, these things, they're all there to a certain extent. The extent to which they're there is the extent to which our longing for God is not so great. These they go hand in hand. One becomes less, the other becomes more. So we won't even desire to know God unless we have a pure mind. Now, pure mind is a relative term. Of course, this perfect purity comes after God realization. But for us, it has to at least be recognition of the crucial role that purity plays. Because if the heart and mind are pure, then they reflect the self, or they are the self. Two ways of looking at it. Either it's a perfect reflector of the self, or that pure heart, that pure mind, that pure buddhi, pure Atman, are all one and the same. Thakur gives both types of illustrations. They're not contradictory. There are different ways of looking at it, different attitudes. Philosophers will say they're a little bit different. Thakur didn't care so much for that type of thinking. There are different attitudes, different ways of trying to understand why we need this purity of heart. And without this purity of heart, the mind will constantly be engaged with external things. It'll be pulled away from the spiritual ideal. One cannot be guileless and liberal-minded without much tapasya, or unless it is one's last birth. That means one did tapasya earlier. Yeah. So what is this tapasya? It has two sides to it. Some of you know this is one of the few questions that I asked Swami Bhuteshanandaji. I was too shy and I didn't have that much contact with him. But I asked him that question about tapasya. And he said that it's not simply spiritual practice. It also means a little bit of austerity of life, even if it means begging one's food. And because he had done that. And for monks going to do tapasya, it means that we have no luxury or anything at that time. They live in a very simple place. Begging food means you can go to one of these almshouses, the chatras, and get some very watery, tasteless dal and some old chapatis that taste like cardboard, and that's what you live off of. So that's part of it. A little bit is it doesn't have to be so austere, but at least not indulging in luxury or not caring much for luxury. And then, of course, the other part is really doing some serious spiritual practice, really with sincerity and devotion. But guilelessness, some people are born with it, and some people it's just not in their nature to be guileless. Say Swamiji, he had every possible spiritual quality, but what we call him guileless, not really. Latu Maharaj, yeah, but he grew up as a village boy, and it depends on, yeah, the background and how we grow up and everything. But those who are guileless, Sri Ramakrishna was really very fond of it. He felt such attraction for that. Sri Ramakrishna was worrying like a child because he thought his legs were slightly swollen. Now here, someone who at will can go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he's worried about a little bit of swelling in his leg. See, he had this Balaka Swabhava. He had this nature of a child. He used to say that all of the time. And he had to keep his mind down by getting into that mindset. Second thing, and also he emphasized so much this idea that the avatar is in all respects human, like an ordinary human being, at the same time being completely different. And his favorite example was how Rama wept for Sita. So he had these very human qualities. If he hadn't had these human qualities, how could we love him so much? The sweetness of his personality, or Holy Mother, how she would weep every time somebody left her. I mean, It's not the same as someone can just go into nirvikalpa samadhi. Of course, we have reverence and respect for them, but this beautiful personality and simplicity and guilelessness, these are the things that really attract. So Sri Ramakrishna was worrying like a child because he thought his legs were slightly swollen. Mahendra Kaviraj of Shinti entered the room and saluted the master. So finally, a doctor has come. He'll be happy. Right? Master to the devotees. Yesterday, I said to Naran, just press your leg and see if there's any dimple. He pressed it, and there was one. Then I gave a sigh of relief. To Mukherjee, will you please press your leg? Is there any dimple? Mukherjee, yes, sir. Master, ah, what a relief. Mani Malik, why should you worry about it, sir? Yeah, he giving advice to Swami Krishna. He doesn't really understand this play, part of this lila. That Thakur was like that. Why should you worry about it, sir? Please take your bath in the river. Why should you take medicine? Master, no, sir. You have strong blood. Your case is different. Yeah, Sri Ramakrishna, really, he could hardly walk any distance at all. Every time we hear about him going on any pilgrimage, he's in a palanquin. His body was so tender, he really had very little. I mean, when we read about the austerities and things that he performed, there's no wonder we can't question why that would happen. Anybody else's body would have burned up. How it takes a toll on the physical body, all of that austerity and all of that bhava, those different types of realizations. Anyhow, he says to Mani Malik, no, sir, you have a strong blood. Your case is different. The Divine Mother has placed me in the state of a child. One day, I was bitten by something in the jungle. I had heard people say that in case of snake bite, the poison would come out if the snake bit again. So I put my hand in a hole and waited. A man passing by said to me, what are you doing? You will get rid of the poison only if the snake bites again in the same place. So other people knew about this. What are the odds on getting bit in the same place? It has to be the exact same hole. Yeah, anyhow, Thakur tells this story in other times. He said as soon as he heard that, he removed his hand. Here it just says, I was told that the autumn dew was good. Yeah, I think Hazra told him. One day, while coming from Calcutta, I stuck my head out of the carriage and exposed it to the damp air. Again, we're not getting the full thing here. Other times he said, then I caught cold. I fell sick after that. To Mahendra of Shinti, that Pandit from Shinti is very good. He holds a title for his scholarship. He respects me. I said to him, you have read a great deal, but give up the vanity that you were a scholar. That made him very happy. I discussed Vedanta with him. To M, now again going back to M, he'll give a teaching, not just for M's sake, but so that M can write it down. Yeah. Now, he's not going to write the whole thing down, but he's going to keep it in his mind. He'll take his notes, and later he'll write out everything. To M, that which is pure Atman is unattached. Now, this we understand, this pure Atman, to be this witnessing consciousness that is not affected by anything. If I see someone suffering in the street, then I get affected. How? That some hurt feeling, some feeling of sadness comes, but this witnessing consciousness is observing my feeling of sadness. It's not affected. That's the real self. And that's the sense of our self of oneness throughout a whole lifetime. It doesn't mean that I become cold and dry. Then mine will be affected by these things if I'm a good person. But this Atman is completely unattached. This we have this example: the good and bad smells are in the air, but it'll just blow right through. It'll get cleaned out. It won't cling to anything. So he says that which is pure Atman is unattached. Maya or avidya is in it. So somehow the mind gets infected. Mind gets infected by these wrong ideas, and we falsely identify with our personality and with his lower self and all of the uh, accidents of our birth, all of the uh, religious and communal and national, all of the different things that we identify with. These all come and cover our understanding of the self, so that we think that that's who I am. In Maya, there are three gunas: sattva, rajas, and tamas. These three gunas also exist in the pure Atman. Now, they exist in the pure Atman only as this Atman is connected with this mind. If we want to say that we have the sun is beyond everything, but the sun has reflected. That reflected sun will take a different shape and form because of these different gunas. So it really belongs to the mind, we can say. But Atman itself is unattached. If you throw a blue pill into the fire, you will see a blue flame. If you throw a red pill, you will see a red flame. But fire itself has no color of its own. So we only know this Atman as it's connected with the mind. And through that connection, it seems to be affected by these gunas. But really, it's unattached, unaffected. A butcher was carrying a load of meat when he touched Shankara. Shankara exclaimed, "What? You have touched me." The butcher replied, "Venerable sir, neither have you touched me, nor have I touched you. You are pure Atman, unattached." Jadabharata said the same thing to King Rahugana. Now, we have all of these stories about Shankaracharya, and they make it sound like he wasn't a fully enlightened, God-realized soul. These are stories that are told to explain the different poems that he wrote. Say, with our Bhaja Govindam, that we have this beautiful poem that this old man is reciting these rules of grammar at the very fag end of his life, and Shankaracharya sees him, and he composes this poem that these rules of grammar won't save you at the time of death, that now is the time to call on God. We know that we have the poem. The stories we don't know. Did he really see this old man at that time or not? There's so many different stories like that have come up to explain how Shankara composed these poems. But these are all well after he became a fully enlightened soul, actually born perfect. He was a Nitya Siddha, Thakur says. So we shouldn't take this too literally, that he needed this man to explain to him that he's the self. He knew that better than anyone. The pure Atman is unattached, and one cannot see it. It is the seer. Of course, we can't see it. If salt is mixed with water, one cannot see the salt with the eyes. And let's stop here. It'll go on. This is a nice section. It'll go on explaining the nature of the pure self, the pure Atman. So we're stopping at the bottom of page 582. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukam Bhatadavigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshimidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namamaha. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Next weekend, we have our retreat, and we'll cancel the Friday night class, beginning with the retreat, and I also have 2 trips next month. So the class will have to be canceled a couple of times. I don't know the exact dates, but it'll, if you check the website, yeah, it'll be there. And we're very late on sending out the message about our retreat. But let me just mention that Swami Kripa Mayanandaji, who is head of the Vedanta Society of Toronto, will be here. He picked a very beautiful topic. There's a small text called Prashnotara Ratnamalika. This is a necklace of questions and answers attributed to Shankaracharya. Very simple things, very beautiful teachings on spiritual life. Very similar to the things we have in the gospel, actually, that when he's asked questions and gives his replies. So that will begin Saturday morning and it'll go till Sunday afternoon. We'll show everything online also for those who can't come. Those who would like to come, there's no registration or any fee. Everyone is welcome to come. We don't have any more space left for out of town people. If those who are out of town want to come, there are lots of nearby motels and hotels that they can stay at. So, okay, so thank you, everyone. Have a very nice Labor Day weekend. How do I exit?